All right, welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever been scrolling through social media super late and you know those ads for psychic soulmate drawings? They start popping up and well, they promise to show you what your future partner looks like.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a glimpse of your Mr. or Miss,
Right. Right.
And maybe you just roll your eyes, right?
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, a tiny part of you
Right.
like feels
A little
curious.
spark.
Yeah, like what if? So today we're not going to, completely write off the whole idea. We are going to take a deep dive into a real story about someone who actually decided to try it out.
We found this really interesting personal story called I Got a Psychic Soulmate Drawing. Here's what happened.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
What makes this story so interesting isn't just the drawing itself, but the journey it took the author on and all the unexpected twists and turns in the way their whole perspective changed.
Right, exactly. And that's what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah.
We're not here to debate whether or not this Madame Elena really has, supernatural powers or a crystal ball or whatever. Right. What we want to figure out is what actually happened when this person took this, well, kind of unconventional route to finding love. What did they learn from it? How did it change them?
Yeah.
Regardless of, whether you believe in psychic abilities or not.
Exactly.
So, how about we unpack this whole thing?
Sure.
All right. So, first things first, let's set the stage. What was going on in this person's life that led them to even think about getting a psychic soulmate drawing?
Well, imagine this. You've been single for a couple of years.
Mhm.
After a relationship that you thought was getting serious, but then it ended.
Oh, yeah.
And, that feeling of loneliness starts creeping in, especially on those nights when you're just by yourself.
It hits you hard then, right?
And that's exactly when the author stumbled across this ad for, soulmate drawings on social media.
Ah, so it was one of those targeted ads.
Yeah, they get you right where it hurts. And those testimonials they use in those ads.
Oh, yeah. It changed my life. Stories.
They really play a big role, don't they? Seeing all these other people saying they found love after getting one of these drawings.
Yeah, it plants a seed. Maybe this could actually work.
Exactly.
And the author looked into a few different psychics, but they ended up choosing Madame Elena. Why was that?
Well, the reviews for Madame Elena were, really impressive. People were saying that the sketches actually looked a lot like their partners.
Wow, that's pretty convincing.
And the price wasn't too bad either, $75.
Yeah, that's not a huge amount to gamble on, potentially finding the one.
And I think the author's mindset was really key here. They weren't, totally convinced that it would work,
Yeah.
but they had this what do I have to lose kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So they were a bit skeptical, but also open to the possibility.
Right, so they decide to go for it. They send Madame Elena the money. What happens next?
Well, the process was actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The author just had to give Madame Elena their name, birth date, and a recent photo.
Okay.
And Madame Elena said she needed this information to, tune into the author's energy.
Ah, so she could visualize their soulmate or something.
Exactly, on some sort of, spiritual level or whatever.
All right, so they send off the information, and then they wait.
About a week later, the drawing arrives as a PDF.
Okay, and what does this supposed soulmate look like?
The author describes it as a really detailed pencil sketch of a man.
Okay.
The first things they noticed were his kind eyes
These eyes?
and a strong jawline and slightly wavy hair.
Okay.
The author said he wasn't like a supermodel or anything.
Yeah.
But there was something about his face that was really warm and inviting. They even felt like they recognized him from somewhere, which is kind of weird.
Wow, that is kind of strange.
Right.
And it wasn't just the drawing, right? Didn't Madame Elena send some notes too?
Yeah, there were some notes that went along with the drawing.
What kind of stuff was in those notes?
They were pretty detailed, actually.
Yeah.
They described the soulmate's personality. He was supposed to be creative and compassionate and have a really sharp sense of humor
Okay.
and also a deep love of nature.
So not just a pretty face.
Right. The notes also said that he might have a career in helping others, maybe in education or healthcare,
Oh, wow. Specific.
and that music would be a big part of his life.
That is so interesting. That level of detail is pretty crazy, right? You wouldn't expect something that specific from a psychic.
Right. It's not just some vague, generic description.
Yeah.
It's like she really tried to pinpoint who this person was.
So what did the author do after they got the drawing and the notes?
Well, at first they were super excited.
Makes sense.
They started looking at everyone they met, trying to see if they matched the drawing.
Oh, yeah.
like scanning crowds, looking at dating profiles, the whole 9 yards.
So they were really trying to find this guy.
Yeah, for like the first month, they were totally focused on finding their soulmate from the drawing.
Oh. Yeah, you get this potential blueprint for your future partner. You gotta see if anyone fits right. But that intensity probably didn't last forever, did it?
No, after a while, the initial excitement started to wear off.
Yeah.
By the second month, the authors started to feel a bit silly, like they had been duped.
Oh, yeah.
And their friends had mixed opinions about it.
What did they say?
Some of them were like, you got to keep the faith. This could still happen.
Right. Stay positive.
But others were worried that the author was getting too hung up on this drawing.
Yeah, like it was limiting their options or something.
Exactly. And eventually, the author decided to just put the drawing away.
Oh.
They put it in a drawer and tried to forget about it for a while.
So they kind of gave up on the whole soulmate drawing thing.
Yeah, they decided to just focus on living their life.
And that's when things took an unexpected turn, right?
Exactly. About 3 months after they put the drawing away, the author signed up for this weekend workshop.
Okay.
It was about sustainable gardening, something they were really interested in.
Cool.
And during this workshop, they met someone named Daniel.
And what did Daniel do?
He was a middle school science teacher,
Okay.
and he played the guitar as a hobby.
Wait a minute. Wasn't that in the notes?
Yeah, the psychic had said that the author's soulmate might work in education and be into music.
Wow. That's kind of spooky.
Right. And the author really hit it off with Daniel. They had great conversations and a lot in common.
So they were clicking.
Totally.
Yeah.
And after the workshop, they started hanging out, getting coffee, just casually.
Okay. And during one of those hangouts, something clicked for the author, right?
Yeah, they were just chatting and laughing, and the author looked at Daniel's face. And they noticed really his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled.
Okay.
And it was like a light bulb went off in their head.
Like a sense of recognition?
Exactly. That's a weird feeling. So when they got home, they dug out that soulmate drawing.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is the moment of truth. So did the drawing look like Daniel or not?
It wasn't an exact match, but there were definitely some similarities. The kind eyes were spot on.
Yeah.
And the expressive eyebrows, and even the way his smile was a little crooked, it was all there in the drawing.
That's so wild.
Right.
But what about the differences?
The biggest difference was the hair. Daniel had much shorter hair than the guy in the drawing.
Okay.
And his face was a little rounder.
Okay. So not a perfect match, but still pretty close, especially with those kind eyes.
Right.
And the personality and career stuff did those match up too.
Like, scarily well.
Really?
Daniel, being a middle school science teacher, fit perfectly with the education angle in the notes.
Yeah.
And his passion for guitar. Total music connection.
Wow.
And personality-wise, the author said that Daniel was exactly as described in the notes. Creative, compassionate, and with a great sense of humor.
So not just a physical resemblance, but a personality match too.
It's crazy, right?
So what did the author do? Did they tell Daniel about the drawing right away?
They actually waited a while.
Yeah, I guess that could be kind of a weird thing to bring up early on.
Right. They wanted to make sure they really liked Daniel for who he was, not just because he looked like the drawing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they waited about 6 months.
Okay.
And then one day, they were on a camping trip together.
A romantic setting.
Yeah, and the author finally felt comfortable enough to tell Daniel the whole story.
And show him the drawing.
Yeah.
And how did he react?
He thought it was hilarious.
Really? He wasn't freaked out or anything?
Not at all. He was really fascinated by it. He kept looking back and forth between the drawing and the author, pointing out the similarities and differences.
That's so great.
And he actually seemed really touched that someone had, envisioned them together before they even met.
Oh, that's sweet. So where are they now? Are they still together?
They've been dating for over a year.
That's awesome.
And the author has had a lot of time to think about this whole experience. And their views on soulmates have changed.
In what way?
They're not so sure anymore that there's one perfect person out there for everyone.
Okay.
But they do believe that the drawing had a positive impact on their life.
Even if it wasn't a literal prediction, right?
Right. The biggest takeaway for them was that it changed the way they approached dating.
How so?
It made them more open to recognizing a genuine connection when it happened.
Instead of just looking for someone who checked all the boxes on a list.
Exactly. They learned that it's more important to focus on the deeper qualities in a person.
Like kindness and shared values and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the things that really matter in a relationship.
So they found someone who matched the drawing's description, but they also learned that it's not all about appearances.
Right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, What do you think is the main point of this whole story? What can our listeners take away from it?
I think the author's story shows that sometimes the most valuable things aren't what we expect.
Yeah.
The drawing itself might not have been magically accurate,
Right.
but it gave the author hope when they needed it.
It opened their mind to possibilities.
Exactly. And it reminded them that love can show up in unexpected ways.
And the author was very honest about not knowing for sure if Madame Elena was really psychic.
Yeah. They said it could have been psychic ability, or good profiling, or just a lucky guess.
Or maybe the drawing became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter how it happened.
No, what matters is that it led to something good.
Exactly.
And the author had some advice for anyone thinking about getting a soulmate drawing.
Yeah, they said go into it with an open mind. Don't expect it to be like a GPS to your soulmate.
Yeah.
But use it as a way to think about what you're really looking for in a partner.
What qualities are important to you?
And don't be afraid to let go of the drawing if you meet someone amazing who doesn't look exactly like it.
Because real connections happen organically.
Exactly.
And the most important thing is to love yourself first.
Yeah, if you're happy with who you are, you're more likely to recognize true love when it comes along.
So, even though we can't say for sure if the drawing was a real psychic prediction or not, it definitely had a positive impact on the author's life.
It changed their perspective and helped them find love.
And that's a pretty cool takeaway. So for our listeners out there, think about this. Could those unconventional things, even if they sound a little out there, sometimes help us grow and change our lives in unexpected ways?
Maybe it's worth being open to those possibilities, you know. You never know what might happen.
Food for thought.